I was shoved into the corner of the Sterling Estate's grand ballroom, my face burning as my parents whispered like vipers about how I'd never fit in here. The chandelier above me glinted like liquid gold, mocking my humiliation, while every guest's eyes skimmed over me as if I were invisible. My brother Preston laughed, loud and oblivious, as he paraded his engagement ring like a trophy, right under the noses of people I knew were vultures in tailored suits. I gritted away teeth so hard it hurt. I wasn't just angry, I was planning. If you're enjoying this, please subscribe and share. Your support keeps the stories coming. I adjusted the tray in my hands, the one they'd forced me to carry, and smiled quietly at the Sterlings, who believed I was nothing more than a clumsy, polite server. Every motion I made was a lie, every nod a performance. They didn't know that beneath this simple uniform, I carried a device that could expose a $50 million Ponzi scheme by the end of the night. Every laugh, every fake compliment I handed out was part of a larger chess game no one had even realized had begun. The room buzzed with champagne toasts and the soft clink of crystal, but I was focused on the transaction Preston had naively promised the Sterlings, a $250,000 investment to seal their false credibility. My heart raced, not with fear, but with anticipation, knowing the moment he handed over that check, everything would unravel. I let my parents' smirks wash over me, their satisfaction in my place fueling the fire in my chest. They had underestimated me for too long, and tonight, that mistake would cost them everything. Preston approached the head table, grinning like a child showing off a new toy, completely unaware of the trap I'd set. The Sterling matriarch leaned in, her eyes sharp and calculating, ready to devour whatever naive pride Preston wore. I moved closer, hands steady, smile unshakable. Every step I took was measured, every gesture rehearsed. Behind my calm, Emily, the girl they mocked and dismissed, was silently orchestrating the downfall of the people everyone else idolized. Then, just as Preston handed over the oversized check, I felt the subtle vibration in my pocket, the signal that the FBI had authorized their intervention. A thrill surged through me. I held my composure as the Sterling's eyes flickered with triumph, oblivious that the entire ballroom would soon explode in chaos. My parents' laughter caught in their throats before they even noticed it. The room's energy shifted, almost imperceptibly, but enough for me to know the dominoes had started to fall. And just when I allowed myself a tiny, secret smile, I heard the soft click of a hidden camera capturing the moment, one that would seal the Sterling's fate and redefine my family's understanding of power. I wasn't just a pawn in this family drama anymore. I was the hand that would flip the board. The room erupted in polite chatter as glasses clinked, but my ears heard only the faint hum of imminent chaos. I could see Preston's chest tighten, that little imperceptible twitch of someone realizing the ground beneath them was shifting. My parents beamed, oblivious, convinced that this display of wealth and social savvy was elevating our family. They had no idea I had planted the evidence, arranged the transfers, and secured the wire that would expose the Sterlings in real time. If you're enjoying this, please subscribe and share. Your support keeps the stories coming. Montgomery Sterling raised his glass, eyes scanning the table, and I caught the smirk that told me he thought he had won. My hand hovered over the wine bottle again, this time deliberately. Every second of hesitation, every deliberate pour was theater. My parents leaned in, their faces glowing with pride at the thought of a grand toast. Preston grinned too proud to notice the trap snapping shut around him. Then I spoke, quiet at first, letting the weight of my words sink in. "To family," I said. Everyone's gaze turned to me. The room paused. The subtle tremor in their smiles betrayed confusion. "And to transparency," I added, my voice steady, calm, unyielding. Cordelia's brow furrowed. "Transparency?" she echoed, with a hint of condescension, but her tone wavered. I tilted my head, smiled lightly, and tapped the wine bottle. "Yes, transparency, about every investment, every ledger, every promise made under our roof tonight. I think it's time we all see the truth." A pause. A single breathless pause. Then the faintest vibration on my phone confirmed it. The transfer had cleared. Agent Vance had given the signal. I didn't flinch. I let them stew in their arrogance. Montgomery's smile faltered, and Seraphina's eyes widened in disbelief. My parents' proud expressions froze into confusion, their empire of social aspiration crumbling quietly before them. Preston shifted uncomfortably. "Emily, what are you—" But his words died in his throat. I slid the tablet across the table toward him, the screen illuminating the $250,000 transfer in stark black and white clarity. "You brought them here, Preston," I said softly. "I just made sure the law caught up." The first agent entered silently, a shadow among the guests. My heart thrummed, not with fear, but with vindication. They were about to witness the dismantling of everything they had relied on for false power. Montgomery Sterling looked around, panic flickering in his eyes, as Cordelia's hand flew to her chest. Seraphina gasped, clutching her designer bag like a shield. And then came the sound, the unmistakable clang of cuffs. Federal agents moved with precision, and the room descended into chaos. "Montgomery Sterling, Cordelia Sterling, you are arrested for wire fraud and money laundering," one agent announced, voice cutting through the panic like a blade. Gasps, cries, and shouts filled the air. Preston's jaw dropped. My parents paled. Seraphina's face turned the exact same shade of the wine she had mocked moments ago. I stayed seated, calm, unshaken, sipping slowly, watching the empire of lies disintegrate in real time. Preston stumbled back, disbelief etching deep lines across his face. "Emily, you can't do this. Mom, Dad, she—" But I met his gaze, serene and resolute. "I didn't do this. You did. You brought them here. I just made sure justice caught up." But the night wasn't over. I reached into my bag and pulled out the eviction notice I had drafted months ago, placing it deliberately in front of my parents. 30 days. Legal, binding, final. Their exploitation of me, decades of silent manipulation, ended now. I didn't flinch. I didn't apologize. I just watched as their authority collapsed alongside the Sterlings. And then, as the officers began ushering my brother and parents toward the exit, my phone buzzed again. A message from my sister. One line, no explanation, just a PDF attached. I opened it, and inside was something I hadn't anticipated, something that could pull me back into the chaos I just escaped. I stared at the document in disbelief, the city lights outside my window blurring into streaks of white and gold. My sister's hand had trembled, but the content inside was precise, deliberate, and dangerous. Preston had left a paper trail far longer and more tangled than I realized. Contracts, secret accounts, offshore transfers. I thought the Sterlings were the apex of the con, but this was a new storm. I took a deep breath, letting the winter air I had invited into my lungs calm the surge of adrenaline. For a moment, I thought about walking away, letting the chaos unfold without me. But no, not this time. I had fought too long, planned too carefully, and sacrificed too silently to let anyone, including family, undermine me again. The next hours became a blur of strategy. Calls to lawyers, encrypted messages to Agent Vance, verification of every number, every signature. Each revelation strengthened my resolve and sharpened my focus. My parents' exploitation, Preston's naive arrogance, the Sterling's hubris, all of it paled beside the realization that control wasn't just power. Control was freedom. Freedom was responsibility, and I was ready. By the evening, I had assembled a new plan, not one born of vengeance, but of finality. I would close every door, secure every asset, and ensure that those who had underestimated me would never have leverage again. The eviction notices had only been the first move. The legal documents I now held in my hand were the final keys to reclaiming every corner of my life. When I arrived at the brownstone the following morning, my parents were already pacing, faces etched with panic. Their protests fell on deaf ears as I calmly laid the papers across the marble countertop. Every account, Every transaction, every property you thought belonged to you, I said slowly, deliberately, is accounted for, and every attempt to manipulate me from this day forward will fail. Thaddeus, Blythe, even Preston, each met my gaze, realizing the quiet daughter they dismissed had transformed into a force that would not be ignored. Their silence was deafening. No words could bridge the chasm I had created between their exploitation and my freedom. Weeks passed, and the fallout spread. Family friends whispered. Extended relatives took sides. Preston's reputation, once protected by naivety and charm, crumbled. My parents' social circle recoiled in disbelief, and through it all, I built a life free from manipulation. New apartment, new routines, new boundaries. I no longer waited for acknowledgement. I dictated terms. I didn't just survive, I thrived. But life, I realized, was never without challenge. The document my sister had delivered revealed not only old debts, but lingering threats from the Sterling's remaining associates. The shadows of past chaos lingered, testing my vigilance. I couldn't rest completely, couldn't let my guard down, not yet. But this time, I was prepared, not afraid, not overlooked, not anyone's pawn. One crisp evening, as snow began to settle over the city streets, I sat at my apartment window, reviewing every plan, every contingency. My phone buzzed again, this time a simple message from Agent Vance. You did it, truly. I allowed myself a small, rare smile, letting the weight of months of silent struggle dissolve into quiet satisfaction. I poured a glass of wine, not to impress anyone, not to signal status, but as a ritual of personal victory. The first sip was a reminder of what I had endured and what I had claimed: autonomy, respect, and a life built entirely on my own terms. The city outside shimmered with possibility, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to explain myself to anyone. I was no longer a daughter waiting to be seen, no longer a sister overshadowed by ego. I was Emily, survivor, strategist, and the architect of my own destiny. And as I set the empty glass down, I knew this was only the beginning. The past had been conquered, the present was mine, and the future, every choice, every triumph, was entirely, irrevocably my own. The envelope for my sister still lay unopened on the counter, a reminder that freedom wasn't a one-time victory. Challenges would come, storms would rise, but I was no longer afraid of them. I had learned, endured, and emerged not just unbroken, but unstoppable. The city lights blinked back at me, and for the first time they reflected not fear, doubt, or expectation, but the unmistakable gleam of someone who had truly claimed her life.